How's it going?
Hey, how you doing today?
I'm doing awesome.
Oh, yeah. I know it's pretty early in the morning.
No, it's fine. You know, I got to bed maybe like a couple hours ago.
Son of a bitch! Yes. What's up? Oh, wait, like you're in prison? I will. If you can you just text me because I'm recording a podcast right now. Okay. All right. Yeah, for sure. Okay, so I'm just gonna take it from like after I introduce you.
All right.
So I'm just gonna like be like, all right, Chris Osborn, blah blah blah. Okay, my guest today, Chris Osborn. It's just like perfect. Son of a bitch. Son of a bitch.
Fantastic.
Hello. No one's even there. Fuck. Shit. Fucking dog and motherfucker. Why? Okay, Tenacious Time Podcast, Episode 8, Take fucking 42. Alright. Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, my guest at this time, Chris Osborn.
How's it going?
Hey, how's it going, man? How you doing today? Son of a fuck!
Tenacious Time Podcast. It's Tenacious Time Podcast. Oh, grab your friends if you have any and come and have a great time with your host, Ricky Tenacious.
Hello, hi, how are you? Welcome to the 8th episode of the Tenacious Time Podcast. I'm your host, Ricky Tenacious, the current reigning, defending, youngest ever, greatest, probably going to be for a very long time, BVW fighting champion, the vaporizer, the athletic aesthetic, some other third moniker that I'm trying to come up with. And, you know, that's Tenacious, all that good stuff. Anyway, welcome to the show, everyone. Thank you very much for tuning in once again. I just want to take a moment to say something about future stars of wrestling. It's nothing bad. Don't worry, I'm not going to bury anyone. I don't have any shovels around here. But it is Monday today, and yesterday was Sunday, the 16th. FSW had their show Moment of Truth at the Silverton Casino, another spectacular show, as always. And before the show, I don't know if anybody noticed, but they got new turnbuckle covers. And they look sexy AF. They're glossy, and they're black, and they're orange, and they're so good looking, and they had this new awesome ring apron, and just, I remember before the show, I was just around, and I kind of took a moment to step back, and I remember I said it to myself. I was like, I gotta take a moment to just step back and kind of, you know, smell the roses really quick. And I guess the turnbuckle covers had a really big part to do with it, because I remember when I was at Ring of Honor helping out there, they had similar turnbuckle covers, and the mat felt the same way, and they had really good ring aprons and chairs all around, and this entrance unit, and everything, you know, it was like, it felt like I was a part of a production. Like, I know FSW has been around for, I think, 7-8 years now, so I think 7, 8, I don't know, one of those, but they've been around for quite some time, and they've really accumulated this huge following, and they've really earned their name. And I really just had to take time to take a step back and realize, well, I am a part of a production. I am the announcer, and that whole announcement, as you all know, just happened completely by chance, and or a coincidence, I should say. And now I'm here. I get a lot of ring time. I'm on TV. I recently saw myself on TV when Cutthroat Cody and Funny Bone had that vicious cage match, and I was like, wow, I look pretty cool. This is pretty cool. This is really awesome. So just a note for anyone, no matter, even if it's not pro wrestling, or if you're a part of any production in general, or if it's your job, or you're doing something really cool with your life, and you come to a point where you're like, you've worked for this, and you find yourself in a really cool position, just don't forget, when you need to, take a step back is the whole moral of the story, and just look at everything from a whole, and then put yourself in there and realize, wow, I'm a part of this. I'm here. This is really awesome. Enjoy that moment, because if you don't do that, then the whole day just becomes another day at work. And you know what they say, when you do what you love, you never work a day in your life. And that's really what it is for me. I'm really glad to be a part of FSW. So I want to take this time to thank Joe DeFalco, Rocky T, anybody else that's involved with the FSW production, whether you're a referee, sound guy, wrestler, cameraman, concession people in Silverton, the people that handle all the tech stuff, merchandise people, everyone who's a part of that show. Thank you very much for accepting me in and letting me be part of that, as well as the fans, most importantly. Thank you very much for all the love and support you guys give me every single show. So, with that being said, let's go and get right into today's guest. He is someone who I recently built I guess you could say, pretty good friendship with, you could say. And don't worry, it's not just one of those online ones that gets really freaky really fast and then Chris Hansen comes in. He is a upstart wrestler in FSW who recently made his debut. He is a monster in the ring and a nice guy outside of the ring. He is a podcaster himself, past and soon to be future, and I guess present because he's about to be on my podcast. He's a lover of movies. He's a self-proclaimed nerd. He's a really all-around nice guy. Please welcome my guest this afternoon, Mr. Chris Osborn.
Glad to be here.
Thank you very much. How'd you find coming here today?
It wasn't too bad. I'm usually a night person, so I usually don't have to deal with so many school zones. I'm pretty sure I drove through like 3 of them.
Yeah. Because we are recording actually pretty early in the day right now.
Yeah,
that's how it goes. Me and you both have lives and schedules, and I know it's pretty spontaneous. I was like, hey, you should be on my podcast. Could you do it like early in the morning?
Yeah, that was great. Yesterday, probably about, what was it? Probably about 8 o'clock. Say, hey, what you doing tomorrow? I'm like, nothing. Want to come in at 7 in the morning? Not really.
All right, but you're going to be there, right?
Yeah, of course.
All right, sounds good. So, as I said in your intro, you're an upstart in FSW. You recently just made your debut at one of the student showcases, where a lot of future stars now, such as Kevin Crossley, even have wrestled in student showcases and gotten their start there. So before we get into all the really nerdy stuff about this guy, because this guy is a really nerdy guy, this is going to be a really fun podcast in my opinion. But let me just ask you, what made you want to be a wrestler?
Honestly, it's cliche to say, but it's a lifelong dream. I mean, I'm sure if you ask anyone who's a wrestler, that's what they're going to say. No one's like, I kind of just had this feeling and want to try it. But, grew up watching wrestling as a kid. Was a 90s kid, so Attitude Era. That's all I need to say. I don't have to say anything else. When I hit high school, I didn't have the inclination to actually train professional wrestling, so I did folk style and then moved on to college wrestling. Which annoys me because we got all these young kids doing it now, and I'm like, I didn't know that was an option. Like, if I could, I'd go back. But about a year ago now, I decided to take the plunge, and it's probably the best decision of my life. I mean, I heard a lot more, and my schedule's a lot more fucked up, but I mean, it's the best thing that's ever happened.
You wrestled in college?
Yeah.
Really? Was that on scholarship or?
Yeah, I went.
Wow.
Went to Newberry College in South Carolina. If you haven't heard of it, then I'm not surprised. I'd be more surprised. I'd be more impressed if you did. But I want to say it was Division II. But wrestled there. Worked with a lot of good guys. We ended up winning that national championship that year. So, but it's a weird thing. I thought having my experience with collegiate wrestling, coming into professional wrestling, I'd be somewhat accustomed to it, but it's a whole different ballgame.
It is a whole. Yeah, I know how you feel because I actually I didn't wrestle in college, but I wrestled pretty young. I think I started amateur wrestling at like 9 years old, and
Nice.
I remember I got into it, and my dad always talked about it because he did it in high school. I think he only did it like his senior year, and he knew I was a huge wrestling fan, and I didn't really know the difference. I just knew they're both wrestling in a sense, and I was like 9 years old going to my first. I trained at Las Vegas High School with the Wildcats, and I didn't know then, but I know now because I know a lot of the coaches. But this was just the juniors division, And the same coach teaches high school, teaches the juniors division. He's like, yeah, I train my juniors division like how I train my varsity team. And it's kind of the same thing with junior varsity. Is I actually train them a little more so the same as my junior team. But anyway, first training, it was the first time I was really ever exposed to any conditioning. I think it was an hour and a half practice. The first half hour was just all conditioning, and then the last hour was just all wrestling. Fucking 15 minutes into that, man, I was bawling because I was using muscles I never used before, man, and I was crying so hard, and I was begging my dad, just get me out of here, please. This is terrible.
I'm guessing, especially like 9 years old, that just seems like torture. That just seems like your parent hates you. I mean, I actually started my freshman year of high school. We actually were the first team for our high school. So it was a whole new program. And, of course, coming into it, no one knew fucking shit about
wrestling
in high school. They were just like, I like WWF, and I can do that. We probably had to cut 20 people because they wanted to use professional wrestling moves.
Yeah.
And I don't know how much your listeners know about amateur wrestling, but you can't just whip out a clothesline.
Yeah, you can't do that.
Punch someone in the face. So
yeah, there's always in my time, because I wrestled from 9 to sophomore years when I stopped amateur wrestling due to injury and other reasons. But I remember there was always that. I guess you could say I was that kid at first because I didn't really ever do like WWE stuff. Like I quickly realized that you can't do that. But there was always kids that came in there wearing WWE shirts, and there's also these guys. I may decide these guys more than anything. These were I would call them the MMA guys in a sense, where they were just guys who watched MMA, came in there with this big ego, with their head up their ass, and all they wanted to do was fucking headlock takeovers. They just wanted to headlock guys. And in amateur wrestling, if there's one thing you know how to reverse, it's a headlock, because that's either you complete the headlock or you get beaten with the headlock. That's how it goes. And so those guys were always really annoying. It was also really fun to always end up taking them over, or just pinning their ass in like 1 minute.
Yeah, there was nothing ever better than getting one of those guys who was just so sure about themselves.
Yeah.
And just they fucking thinking they're the top of the world and just crushing them.
Yeah.
I've got more stories than I can count of guys like that. I mean, I don't know. I like to. I took the stance of, I enjoyed wrestling. I loved it, but I had a job to do.
Yeah.
And it was go out there and just beat the shit out of the other guy and then go back home. That was it. And numerous times, it was I figured out real fast that the best way was just to the mind fuck the other person. I took a lot of pro wrestling stuff that I learned as a kid from watching it and put it into amateur wrestling. So like, I was the guy who was like doing the stare down and like fucking cutting promos on people and being like, all right, now we're gonna go, and like, all right, that's cool. And then, but I had the skill to back it up.
Yeah.
I knew plenty of people who would try to do that and then go out there and get slammed in half a second.
Yeah. Definitely. I definitely know what that's like. What were you studying in college?
Communications.
Oh, okay, great.
Yeah, video production, things like that.
Yeah.
I've done some radio. Honestly, I'm a big fan of writing.
Yeah,
that's
cool.
That's probably my passion. Like, it's pretty much wrestling and writing. So
that's cool, man. Yeah, I'm taking communications in college right now, and the professor I have is this really well-educated professor. Like, I think he's like one of I wouldn't be surprised if he's like one of the top communication professors in the district. And pretty much every class is just a lot of public speaking. Like that's really what we do. Every class is a speech on different stuff, like informative speeches and educational speeches and the 10 steps of public speaking and stuff. Yeah, I've also been involved in writing as well. I used to write myself. Like sometimes I'll write poems every now and then. Like but I usually only write if like I'm really inspired emotionally to write. So
yeah, it's I tell people all the time, because I've numerous people tell me that, like, they can't write.
Yeah.
And everyone has at least one good story in them. But the problem is you have to sit down and you have to. It's work. You got to sit in front of a computer screen and fucking hate yourself for 12 hours a day. But something good will come out of it. But
there's nothing like more annoying than writer's block.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Like I can usually poems are really easy to write for me, and like every now and then when I do write poems, I have to be inspired emotionally. That's usually when it's really good. Like in my opinion, just writing one good poem is way better than just jotting out like 10 poems just because someone was like, "Hey, you're good at writing poems. Write a poem for me." Like, all right, fucking red, blue, something. Here you go. This poem's for you. Blah 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 blah. You know.
See, I get writer's block, but to steal from Kevin Smith, one of the things I do is writer's lays. Pretty much I'll be so creative and I'll create all this stuff and write. And at some point I just hit a point, it's like, you know what? I don't want to fucking make anything. I just want to sit back and watch Netflix. I want you to entertain me. And then it's like 2 weeks later, I'm like, okay, I haven't written a single page. I need to get back on this. But it's pretty much just like working out in real life, like working your muscles. You gotta keep at it and treat it like a 9 to 5 job. Because if it's like, oh, I'll write here and there. I'm trying to finish a book, and like you can't do that. Like you have to treat it like someone's paying you to do this job. So
yeah, interesting story. Actually, I met Kevin Smith like a year ago at a Q&A he was doing here in Vegas.
Was that the one over the Hard Rock?
Yes, it was. Were you there?
No, I missed it.
Oh, dude. They had like 3 events, dude.
Yeah. I think I was working with FSW, all 3 of those things. So
what were they doing that day?
I think they were doing a show. I think it was like Breakdown and a show.
Yeah.
And then something else. So
Sacrifices.
Yeah, thank you, Joe DeFalco.
Yeah, it was a really cool Q&A. He's like, you know Kevin Smith, like he can talk for hours and hours and hours. He has stories galore.
Yeah.
And but one thing, like in every question he answered, he would always allude back to podcasting because he does a lot of podcasting. He's like, everyone should do a podcast. Like that was his main. Like I walked out of there like, yeah, I should do a podcast. And that's actually really he's honestly the main inspiration and inception and catharsis of why I'm doing this podcast right now. Because for the longest time, even my good friend Colton, who I've mentioned on here plenty of times now, me and him have always been like, we should totally podcast because he's a big fan of Rooster Teeth, and they do is podcasting over there.
Rooster Teeth, the Drunkcast. That was the first podcast I ever listened to. I think Kevin Smith was like, I'm sure a lot of people will take credit for the podcast boom, but I really believe it was him.
Yeah.
And honestly, I think that dude just likes getting paid to talk.
I also think Joe Rogan should be a good name to throw in there too. Yeah. He does a lot. Yeah, Joe Rogan and Kevin Smith, they can podcast for hours, man. That's really good stuff. But yeah, I've just always wanted a podcast, and then I know for the longest time, like I was just kind of saying I was gonna do it, and then I got this first episode of the Tenacious Time podcast, which you can check out right now on Tenacious TV. It sounds super shitty because I use a terrible fucking mic, but it was just more about just doing it, just finally getting it out of the way. And I found this app on my computer that would allow me to do it. And then after I started podcasting, I had a good friend, Levi, who was a guest on my podcast. I think it was the second episode. And this is the mic I'm using right now is his. And wait, what am I talking about? No, this is a really good mic that I'm renting from this luxurious studio that's a part of the whole deal because I'm a rich man that can afford to do this.
Yes, absolutely. I can attest to this. We're currently in a giant studio. I have an espresso machine right here. That's the only way I'm able to make it through this early in the morning.
Yeah, yeah. We even have a full room committed to just all M&Ms. Like I have the M&M store in this studio,
but it's separate ones, right? Each one's a different color M&M.
Yeah,
it's
all color coded. Yes, yeah. It's very. And then there's out of this whole studio, it's all part of the studio. And it's considered like really important to the studio. But then there's this one room where we podcast, but there's all this stuff surrounded. Like the PlayStation 6 hasn't even been invented yet. Yeah. I never even play it. It's just there. Yeah. I pay for it and everything.
I saw you just have that PlayStation 9, that little ball that you open and you like sniff it.
Yeah.
Yeah, you have one of those.
Yeah.
Just in a box somewhere. It's like it's not even out. Like, there's so much technology and so much great things that it's just clutter. You know.
It is. Yeah. So enough with this. I honestly can't really ever get enough of all this cool talk about podcasting and opinions and stuff. But let's get into more about you, yourself.
Absolutely.
You are a self-proclaimed nerd. I remember last night one of the main reasons I wanted you on this podcast because you said you wanted to start a podcast yourself, or you've had a podcast before.
Yes.
And you're trying to start one again. So just shed some light on that.
I've done a couple different things with people. I've always been an advocate for the idea of a podcast being just a couple people talking.
Yeah, bullshit.
Yeah,
Just
it's
talking
just
about
bullshit.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that's the fun thing. The quote I always give people is, I always like it to sound like you're sitting there with a couple of your friends and you're just listening. Mm-hmm. Because I don't, as a writer, more than being a writer, I'm a storyteller. Mm-hmm. And I like hearing people's stories. And I think that's the big thing about podcasts. We like to hear people to talk and tell stories. So I've worked with some people, tried to get some things going. Unfortunately, some people want to do things their other ways. I remember one of the ones I used to do a long time ago. They like to do skits, and like that's fine, but like
It kind of takes away from the authenticity of talking, you know.
Like I'm a decent actor, but I'm not an impressionist. And you're like, hey, do a Michael Jackson voice. And I'm like, that's a terrible idea. Like this isn't going to be funny at all. All two of our listeners are just going to shit on it completely.
That's like the best. That's the most like accurate thing for any podcast to say. I know what you mean. I think the most viewers I have right now is like 60 or something like that.
Yeah. Well, see, here's what we're building a library so that when you're super big and you're fucking podcast number 120, and they're like, I love this thing, they go back and they listen to it from the beginning, and then it's like, God, it was so awful in the beginning,
but now it's so awesome. I love it. I don't know how I got into this so much.
And then you're gonna have those people who are like, you know what, I liked it when it was original. I was listening from episode 2.
So it's one of those guys. Like I literally have like all this guy's work on my phone. I actually have a separate phone just to listen to his podcast, even all the old and new stuff. Sometimes I'll be relaxing in the tub and I'll just be listening to that. Like I'll just put on a random episode. This is my idea of fun.
I look forward to you jumping the shark. Like just the big 100 live cast.
Oh yes,
with 100 different guests. You bring everyone back. That's what it is.
That could be wow. That's really. I never even thought of that. That could be. It'd be like the 100-minute podcast where it's just all of my guests are back again, and for 1 minute they all just circulate. Like, so what do you think of this podcast? It was fucking shitty. Next person, it was fucking shitty. Next person, it was really shitty. I say, it wasn't that bad. Really? No, I'm just kidding. It was really fucking shitty. I just keep going. But yeah, speaking of 100 podcast, I think I'm going to probably do something big for like the 50th episode. Because like, if I get to 50 episodes, taking time to fucking do this shit, that's an accomplishment.
Well, I want to say something, and we'll continue on about, but podcasts, like, people think it's literally just as easy as pressing record and talking. Yeah. And to a certain extent it is, but as you know, we've been here for probably 40 minutes trying to get it started. Yes. People don't realize how much work goes into just getting everyone to shut the fuck up so you can record talking.
Yeah. Even if you have like a luxurious studio like this and you have all the amenities you need, you still have obstacles.
You have so many fans just clamoring to get in here. It's just constant calls and
I have a receptionist, and my receptionist has a receptionist. My assistant Aaron Bradley, who is not here right now because he's out getting Taco Bell as usual. But you know he has a job, and I have to yell at him, not because I want to. Well, I kind of do want to, but still because I have to, because that's what a boss does. You know,
you gotta make sure they understand the hierarchy.
Yeah, hierarchy, definitely. But yeah, I have a few ideas for like a big podcast, like 50th episode, because I have a ring at my house, so I'm thinking I'd probably do instead of like an audio podcast, maybe do like a video podcast where it's like get some wrestlers.
Podcast battle royal.
Oh shit, that'd be great. Winner gets to be on my podcast. And maybe like 100th episode do like another live thing where it's like maybe like do like a live music show or something. Because I don't even know this, but I've done my house has a big backyard. I've hosted like my own house shows before. Like a lot of fundraising stuff for St. Jude's Ranch for Children, and nice. I once did a living room show, which is basically exactly what it sounds like. It's just a show in my living room. I got like 20 of my friends and a few acoustic performers and set up a mic stand and a speaker or a amplifier, and they just played, and it was like such a chill time. And I'd love to do something like that and like have like a guest on, have a live audience That'd be awesome. Like,
Oh, yeah.
I'd love to do that. Yeah. So, other nerdy stuff we got to talk about. We talked about movies, which I think is a really interesting topic. I know you want to talk about that.
Yeah, I mean, it's another one of those cliche things of like, oh yeah, of course everyone likes movies.
Yeah, everyone loves movies.
But yeah, I'm a big moviegoer. I'm one of those weird people. I go to the movies by myself because
Really?
I see it as a experience. It's like that's my going to church. I mean, because there's nothing like as a kid going into a theater, the experience of like walking into this place and seeing all these movie times and smelling this terrible still popcorn.
Yeah.
And just walking into a theater and just sitting there for a couple hours and being transported to another place. And it sounds incredibly pretentious, like I'm an asshole, but no, it's that's how I feel. Like that's why I love movies so much.
I can totally agree with that. When I'm 19 now, and when I was, I think I really started getting into movies when I was 12. I want to say 12 or 13. And one of the movie that really plunged me into wanting to be a filmmaker was Death Proof by Quentin Tarantino. I don't know if you know that one. Yeah. And they had it's that big car chase movie, and they have that big fucking car crash, and it was so awesome. I loved it. And so from there on, I was like, that was a movie that made me see there's a lot more to movies than I think. Because whenever I go to the movies, it was always like a really special occasion. Like maybe like 6 times out of a year, my parents would take me to the movie, or my mom or my dad or whatever. And, it'd be really fun because it's like you have to pay to see this movie, and you come into this theater with all these people, and they're all laughing with you, or they all have the same reaction.
It's a weird shared experience.
Yeah.
And we really don't have a lot of things like that. I mean, we have like sporting events and things like that, but literally just sitting down and watching something take place. I am curious though. So Death Proof.
Yes.
Did you watch it in the theaters as the whole Grindhouse movie, or just Death Proof?
I wish. I fucking wish,
Okay.
dude. I was at the pawn shop, and because we were going in there to look for movies, I guess. And my dad came across Death Proof because there's the grind. People don't know 2007. Quentin Tarantino, Robert Rodriguez collaborated for this big movie project called Grindhouse, where it was billed as a double feature. They had some fake trailers from like Rob Zombie and Eli Roth and a few other.
Edgar Wright, I believe.
Edgar Wright, yes, yeah. And Robert. That's where Machete originated, and so
it's weird to think that Machete was. A fake trailer at one point.
Yeah, and now it's this thing. Honestly, all of those trailers, I would love to see a full movie of that.
I'm still waiting for Thanksgiving.
Yeah, Thanksgiving would be so great. Oh man, but anyway, they did it like as the old grainy film style, and it was like exploitation film. It was a really just awesome thing. And so my dad got Death Proof. And at that time, as a kid, you never pay attention to who the director is. You never pay attention to who the actor is. You just know it's a movie about this, and either it's gonna be funny, it's gonna be awesome, or it has something in there that you're gonna be interested in. So he shows me Death Proof. He shows me the DVD, and he goes, "Hey, wow, Quentin Tarantino, he's really good." And I was like, "Who the fucking Quentin Tarantino?" Like, I don't know. I didn't even know he's the guy who made Kill Bill, this awesome movie. And so he wanted to have this movie night. I had my friend over, and so he puts it in, and I had this other conception or perception of what the movie was going to be about, and I watched it, and I was just totally starstruck by it. Like, I was totally in awe of how awesome this movie is, and I was like, there's other, like, Quentin Tarantino, this guy who made this movie, like, he has to have other fucking great movies. And then I watched Pulp Fiction, and then I watched Reservoir Dogs, which both of those movies would end up were really the ones that would solidify me wanting to be a filmmaker one day. I have a few short films now. I'd love to make more. And then I watched all of his movies. I watched The Hateful Eight. I watched Django Unchained. All this stuff. And then go back to your question. I actually I found out they were releasing Grindhouse on Blu-ray DVD. I was like one of the first people to buy it. I have it. Right. I have it. We should like have a movie night.
You want to just cut off the podcast and watch Grindhouse? I'm totally fine with that.
We can definitely do that sometime. But I'll
make you feel a little bit better about not seeing it in theaters. Because I remember I was incredibly excited about the concept of Grindhouse.
Yeah.
Because I think the double feature is a lost art.
Yeah.
When I moved to California, back in 2007, actually, I was broke. But I would splurge every so often and see 2 movies, and I'd try to do stuff that complemented. So when they had the Grindhouse movie, that was two movies together. I was like, oh, this is perfect. And I went to a midnight showing, packed house.
Really?
Probably one of the craziest crowds I've ever been in a movie theater.
What was it like? Was it the premiere?
No, it wasn't the actual premiere, but it was a midnight showing of it on release day.
Okay, yeah. So okay, cool.
As you can imagine, a Southern California crowd, just tons of alcohol, tons of other questionable substances in the air, and it was just a great environment. And like I said, one of the best crowds I've ever been in, probably in anything, movie, sporting events, whatever. The problem is the way they had it set up was you had a couple fake trailers, then you had Planet Terror, which was the other film in the Grindhouse movie with Robert Rodriguez, and then another couple trailers, and then Death Proof.
Yeah.
Now, I'm sure a lot of people haven't seen it in that order because I don't think they've ever actually released the entire thing in its entirety. I'm not one to say go download stuff illegally, but if you can find a pirated copy of the Grindhouse experience, it's pretty cool to watch it. And since it's all shitty film anyway, it doesn't matter. It looks pretty much this. If it looks shitty, then you got the right one.
Yeah.
But the problem was Planet Terror was such a high action, high octane, just crazy shit happening.
Balls to the wall movie, yeah.
That it brought the crowd so high. And then you had a little bit of funny with the other trailers. And then Death Proof just fucking bottomed out. Like the beginning of Death Proof starts off really good, but then you get that diner scene where they're sitting for like 20 minutes.
And they're just fucking talking.
Yeah, and mind you, you're now at probably about 2 a.m.
Yeah.
And it is fucking rough. And it killed the experience a little bit. Like once the chase started happening again, it kind of brought it up. But I think a lot of people who don't like Death Proof, it's because they went and saw it in theaters.
Yeah.
Because everyone who loves Death Proof saw Death Proof on its own. And watching it on its own, it's a much better film than following up Planet Terror. Honestly, if they just switched the two, I think it'd been fine.
Yeah.
Like, start slow into a fucking balls to the wall action. But who am I? Who the fuck am I to tell Robert Rodriguez
or Quentin Tarantino
what to do?
Yeah.
You know what? Do whatever you want, man.
Yeah, that's a really interesting perception because I know a lot of people. I think even Quentin Tarantino said himself that Death Proof was like the movie, like his least favorite movie to make, or like a movie if he had to choose one movie not to make, it would have been Death Proof. Like I will always love Death Proof because that just has sentimental value to me.
Yeah.
And I love a lot of the scenes, but I can definitely see because I've seen the whole Grindhouse thing before, and I know you're thinking of this Planet Terror balls to the wall movie. Funny ass trailers, and then Death Proof, and that's just how Tarantino goes. He loves dialogue, and there's definitely a lot of scenes in there that I felt really were like. I'm not trying to be disrespectful to him or anything. I love the guy, but I feel like it was to pretty much suck the tits of all the women that were in there because I know he wanted like Zoe Bell. She got a lot of dialogue. He just put all that in there to give them the dialogue. When it was like you really could have just cut all that out and just get to the fucking. To the chase, no pun intended, and just, go on. It was still some really good stuff, but I can definitely see an audience like that, Southern California, 2 a.m., fucking sitting through all this dialogue, and then, getting brought down.
And you also got to think about the fact that no one knew what to expect.
Yeah.
All they really knew was these two posters, pretty much.
Yeah.
And, like, Planet Terror was clearly had a woman with a
fucking
machine gun leg.
Yeah.
Like, you knew what this was going to be. And Death Proof looked like just a high-octane racing or car chase movie. And it was. It was just, it's that one dialogue scene. I really do think that one diner scene killed it for a lot of people. Although, I wouldn't change it. That's the thing, because I love dialogue. I think it's a lost art form with a lot of filmmakers because they're worried about losing their audience.
Yeah.
Kevin Smith is another example for me, because... where your inspiration is Quentin Tarantino, Kevin Smith was mine.
Actually, Tarantino, Rodriguez, and Smith mainly. So yeah.
But I think if the best filmmaker ever, or really just any writer, if you can have a scene between two characters talking for an extended amount of time and hold the audience, I think that's better than any Michael Bay explosion fest.
That kind of relates to wrestling in a sense. You hear a lot of vets saying, like, if you can get the audience's attention for 5 minutes without even fucking touching, you're good. You whatever you're doing is an art. That's how you know you fucking made it. You've got something good.
The scene for me that sold me was the original Clerks.
Yeah.
And it's Randall and Dante, and they're talking about the independent contractors on the Death Star.
Oh,
on
great
the second
scene.
Death Star.
Great fucking scene.
I love it so much because it's a nerd concept that everyone knows about.
Yeah.
But in a new light.
Yeah.
And I love the idea of painting our heroes as a bunch of mass murderers. And that's just exquisite writing, in my opinion, of having this scene of a movie scene that millions of people have seen, that two dudes in a convenience store talking about, and now it's an entirely different thing.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm right there with you.
Yeah, that's really awesome. And I remember him talking about that very scene when they're doing that, and he put a lot of the scenes in that movie, because you really think about that movie is just a big canvas with a title on it, and then everything below it is just shit that he put in because he could, not just because it's his movie, but because the plot of it, the whole idea of it made sense. It's these two guys working at a convenience store for a day, and this is the shit that fucking happens on a daily basis. And one of those things is them talking about nerdy bullshit. And especially because Randall, he works in a movie store, so he looks at all these fucking movies.
Well,
so.
see, I think people discredit Kevin Smith a lot of times, but he's the epitome of what I said. Everyone has a story in him. Mm-hmm. Everyone talks bullshit with their friends. Everyone has terrible stories. Whether you work in retail or whatever you do, you have stories from your life that if someone watched on a screen, they would be entertained by it.
Yeah.
And Kevin Smith literally just worked in a shitty convenience store, in a shitty fucking video store in the middle of no one gives a fuck New Jersey. And then just one day went, you know what? I'm going to make this a movie. And then made a career.
Yeah.
So that's why I wish people wouldn't look at their lives shitty.
Yeah.
You made a good point about earlier talking about FSW and your moment of realizing what you were doing. I had that moment last year of realizing that I was a struggling novelist. I was an aspiring wrestler. I had a podcast. I was doing D&D weekly, and I was like, I'm living my 5th grade dream. Yeah. And like, I will never shit on anyone who did the typical route. Had a family, had a normal job. Yeah. That's their life. That's fine. But me, that's not me. And it's nice to be able to live your weird life. And wrestling has made that possible.
That's a really beautiful way to put it, honestly. Like, I kind of feel the same way. Well, we're going to get into D&D next, because we have to fucking talk about that. But, yeah, wrestling and podcasting and, like, filmmaking and being, especially the people associated with doing all of that, like the awesome people like yourself. I consider you one of those awesome people right now. And just being a part of that and taking, like I said in the beginning, is taking a step back and realize this is what I want to do. Like, this every day is something now. Every day is fucking coming with an idea, is calling people and being, hey man, what are you doing right now? You want to come fucking film this idea I just came up with? And like my good friend George Elias, I know he does that. He's a filmmaker himself with Lazy Eye Productions, and he'll just come up with ideas off the bat. Like, it won't, like, for me to really get the camera and turn on record and get people to my house and film this idea I have, like, it takes a lot. Like, I have to really have this formulated idea, even if it's a short film. I really have to know what it is. I have to believe that it's going to be successful to make it. But this guy, he'll come with like any idea. Like, his film Loom was just about this guy who sees a light and goes to it and then gets transported to different places. And he made like 3 parts of that.
That's a cool idea.
Yeah, it really was a cool idea. And like, for me, I'd be like, that's really all the movie. It's all 3 of the movies. That's what it is. They're all, I think each movie is like 1 to 3 minutes long. And that's all it is, just this light. And for the viewer, just being like, what is that light? And for me, like, if that was my idea, I really could not have just made a movie about some guy going to a light. Like, there had to been, I would have put too much thought into it probably. It's like, well, why is he going to the light? What is the light? What can it be? And if I couldn't come to that, then I wouldn't make the movie. But what he did was he just had this idea of this guy going to a light and then getting transported, and then that was the end of the first movie. And then he saw what people thought of it, and people liked it. He's like, all right, here's the second one. Guy goes to a light. He's in a different place now. Now that people know, the light brings him to somewhere else. Third movie, I'm still debating on what that was about, but like, it's just he brings him to this paradise, and I'm spoiling a lot of it. If you guys can go, for my viewers, go check out A Loom by Lazy Eye Productions. You can look it up yourself later as well.
Absolutely.
But yeah, that's my little spiel on movies and stuff.
It sounds very reminiscent of a movie I remember watching. And, of course, everyone who's going to fact-check me now is going to find out everything I'm saying is wrong. Mm-hmm. But I believe it was called The Red Balloon. I think it was a French film. And I want to say it's very old. I'd say at least maybe the 60s. And it literally is a balloon, like, floating around this city. And just going... And you're just following this balloon through its travels. And it's such a weird movie. And it's like an hour and a half long. But
is there like characters in it, dialogue? Is it literally just this balloon floating?
It's literally this balloon just floating through this world, and it'll go into buildings, and you'll have interactions with people who live there or on the streets. So you're getting little parts of people's lives. For the most part, it's just showing the journey of this balloon, and it's so simplistic. And of course, you got people who are just, that's about our lives and how we just travel through. I'm like, all right, that's cool, but like I just appreciate it. I also love the idea of just I know for a fact that they had people just wrangling this balloon. Like, we need to go this way. Oh, fuck, the wind's just taking it this way. I love the idea of a film crew just trying to push this balloon the right way.
Like, the camera's there, this one square, because that's really what movies are. It's just square. You don't see anything outside the screen. And then if they were to bring it out, you have like 100 crew members just fucking whapping their hands so the balloon stays in place. And
none of them saw like the vision that the director have.
Yeah.
They're just like, what the fuck are we doing here, guys?
We do not get paid. Fucking 4 years of film school for this bullshit. That's actually really interesting and ironic because I recently just made a Facebook post. I don't know why I thought of it. I was probably smoking too much marijuana or something. But this thought came to my mind because I remember senior sunrise, I think it was. It was this event for seniors in high school. We all gather around early in the morning, party, and then go chanting through the hallways. And before we did that, I actually think it was senior sunset, which was, there was senior sunrise, which is in the morning, senior sunset is at night. And they're both just two celebrations of being senior, basically.
Yeah.
And so we all had this balloon, and then, of course, like, we say some shit, and then we let it go, and they all go up into the sky. And so this idea popped in my head of, I'm pretty sure, like, a lot of people have done that before. Like, that's a really, like, normal occasion now to symbolization of celebration, to throw a balloon in the air and let it float away. And so I'm thinking to myself, where do all the balloons go?
Yeah,
and so that movie kind of is another answer to the question,
See, as the older, more cynical asshole of the two of us, I believe, all I picture is there's one fucking tree on some dude's property that's just covered in balloons. And he's like, these fucking balloons every year, these fucking seniors. And that is the epitome of what high school is for me. It's like, we're going to go live our lives. And then it's just fucking shit. And it's like, no, can I just go back to being a balloon in this school? It's like, nope, you gotta go fucking be an adult now.
Shit. My idea was, it was more imaginary. It was like, your idea was really funny. But mine was like they all float and like they all go to the same place somewhere like near the heavens. And they kind of create like this ship of balloons. Like they all come together and they form like this pirate ship. There's no one even on it. It just floats. And I don't know. That's really all I got from there. But
I miss that optimism.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then I made that post and asked other people what they thought of it. And like my sister was just shut me down immediately. She's like, yeah, they pop and they fall into the ocean and they kill fucking animals. So they kill fish and everything. And then one guy was like, they just freeze in the atmosphere. Yeah. So yeah, let's go. Like I said, I want to talk about D&D. D&D, or people that don't know, Dungeons and Dragons is a tabletop role-playing game that's been played for years now. I'm pretty sure it's referenced all the time in all types of shows. Like if you watch Community, they have a show they have an episode completely committed to D&D. There's lots of podcasts about it. There's you look up D&D right now. There's people that just every week they just sit down and play it. It's played in homes.
Clearly, don't go listen to those podcasts right now.
You want to listen to this podcast. Yeah, don't leave, please. I honestly need I need the viewers. I need the income, the little income that'll at least help me pay for the fee to stay here.
No. You want that little bit of just to pay off that extra car, right? Because you're making millions of dollars off this.
Yeah, millions of dollars.
Millions.
Yeah, podcasting is a very reliable career.
Yes.
But I started playing D&D, I think the summer of my junior year with some friends that from theater, and I got into it, and then my good friend Aaron and Colton were just got into it themselves, and so I played with them, and then eventually I purchased 5th edition came out, which is the most recent edition, and I bought all the stuff for that. And my idea was that I was going to get all my friends together every week, and that we were going to play 5th edition games, which we did, I think, like 2 weeks in a row. And then if you know people that are not very reliable with schedules, and they're just like, I can't do it this week, man, sorry. And then before you know it, everyone else has that excuse. And then
they realize that that the other people can leave without you're cool with them leaving, so they're like, I'm just gonna leave too. Like,
oh, I gotta go. Oh shit, my I left the lawn mower on, and I gotta go to the bathroom and all this. And so then eventually you realize this money you put into 5th edition D&D is just this box sitting on your shelf in your room. It is sad.
I had a pretty constant one for probably about a good 6 or 7 months, and I still have my character sheets and my stuff tracking, and it's just sitting there right now. And it's just
what's really sad for me is that I would always talk, like, I think there was like 4 instances where I was like, all right, we're gonna start it up, and I got people together like, let's do it. And I was like, all right, I just want to get to the chase. Tell me which character you want to be, and I can make up the character sheets for you. I literally have like 20 character sheets that I've never seen the daylight of play ever, because all those people fall out, and so they're just characters that I was so excited about and never came to anything.
Yeah, well, see, I'm a little bit jealous. I grew up in rural South Carolina. For an idea what it's like where I lived, you drive 20 minutes any direction and you're just fucking hitting cows.
Yeah.
Like, it sucks. And growing up there, and especially the age I was, because it was a different age back then. Kids today have it really easy with the fact that nerd stuff and superheroes are a lot more acceptable. As a kid, when you were lucky to find one Batman shirt and one Superman shirt. Like, forget Iron Man, forget Captain America. Like, that's too niche. You can't put that in a store. And I've always been a big guy, so I look intimidating. So no one ever makes fun of me when I was a kid. But the only thing I ever got made fun of was when I would like nerd stuff. I remember Star Wars, getting made fun of for that, and so I started kind of like hiding my nerdness. I kind of put it away. I stopped wearing shirts that I liked, and I remember I hit high school, and I did football, I did wrestling. I wasn't a jock because I still did video production, but I was very much in that jock crowd. Yeah. And I just remember seeing the quote unquote nerds, like the losers who would sit and play D&D, and I'm just like, fuck, dude, I wish I could do that. Magic the Gathering.
Oh, you play Magic?
No, I don't.
Fuck, that would have been the cherry on the cake. I love Magic.
I wish.
Yeah.
It was one of those things. It's like, this looks so cool.
It is cool. It's really cool.
But there was literally no one I knew who did it. And I moved to California, and thankfully, actually, Kevin Smith, he used to have his own podcasting theater, the Smod Castle. Going there and interacting with a lot of people through there. Kevin Smith, Malcolm McDowell from Clockwork Orange. I met him through there. But probably one of the most influential was a group of female gamers and creative people, Team Unicorn. A number of them work on different things. One of them's, of course, I'm forgetting all their names. One of them's the wife of Seth Green.
Mm-hmm.
But they came in, and they're not the typical nerd. They're, to be honest, they're all very attractive women.
Yeah.
And at that time, that wasn't the look for nerds.
Yeah.
But hearing them talk about, you don't have to be a certain thing and like embracing it, like that was very inspirational to me. And I fucking went full bore and like, you know what? I'm gonna fucking be a nerd. Like, I'm gonna wear dumb shit. I'm gonna buy stuff. But anyway, back to D&D. Sorry.
No, I can touch on that. It's like, it's really, honestly, especially with modern times now, like it's really a custom for people to be nerdy. Like that's that.
Yeah.
Like that's the thing now. Like you go into Hot Topic, like every other person's wearing their favorite band shirt or an Adventure Time shirt or a wrestling shirt.
I remember it used to be a lot of band shirts.
Yeah.
And the joke was you would ask someone, "Oh, what song do you like?" And like, I don't listen to them. It's like, "Oh, you're one of those." Now it's more like superhero shirts. It's
Yeah.
like, "Oh, did you read issue blah blah blah?" And it's like, I saw a little bit of the movie, and it's like, what are you talking about? But yeah, with D&D in high school, the phrase is, I always thought I was too cool to play with the nerds, and I don't mean that in the way of like condescending. I mean it was like I couldn't transition, like I wasn't cool enough for them.
Like you couldn't sit down and have nerd talk and get their humor.
Yeah.
It
was like I would try, and then because it was like who I was and how I looked, like I immediately got like a bad vibe because they expected me to be an asshole. So I would like, hey, so what's this thing? And they would kind of be condescending about it, like, oh, you don't want to know about this. I'm like, all right, then fine. I'll go play with my football. I don't want to fucking play I want to play with those cards. And then when I moved to California, I started getting more involved in stuff. I remember going to San Diego Comic-Con for the first time. And I went there, and I had such a weird feeling, and like I felt like someone who snuck in. Like I wasn't nerdy enough. I'm like, oh my god, if they realize who I really am, they're gonna fucking tar and feather me and throw me out in the streets of San Diego.
Yeah.
And you're always gonna get those people who want to keep their little niche groups, but nerds are probably the most accepting people I've ever met. And like you and me, we connected over
We're
stuff.
connecting right now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I remember a story I had. I love this story. Last year, before Episode 7 of Star Wars came out, I walked into a Walmart, and I can't remember. I was probably getting something dumb, and I wandered over into the T-shirt section, and I looked at this entire wall of Star Wars shirts, and I remember that I was thinking about when I was in middle school and getting made fun of for liking Star Wars. Mind you, I was wearing like Episode 1 shit, which I should have been made fun of because it's the prequels, but that's neither here nor there. And this kid who's probably I'd say maybe 17, if that, comes up and he starts talking to me about Star Wars. And he's a different ethnicity, and we're sitting there, we have a conversation for like 20 minutes, and I realize we go our separate ways. We say, hey, enjoy Episode 7 when it comes out, and we go our separate ways, and I realize I just met this stranger, had an entire conversation, and like connected on a level that I would have never connected in any other way because of our mutual nerdness.
Yeah.
And it's like we were saying about the band shirts. People look at nerds as comic books and movies, but people are nerd about cars. People are nerd about bands.
Yeah.
It's not a bad thing to be a fan of something.
Or even like something like guns.
Yeah.
Or even like for like as like the stereotypical old people, they like talking about kids, or they like talking about cooking utensils, you know? Shit like that. Just because it's something they agree on and they can talk about it. And it's like you have, I think like the real beauty of movies isn't just this story that you're watching and you become somehow emotionally connected to, and you forever cherish how it made you feel. But then there's like cult movies, like just off the top of my head, like Clerks or House of 1,000 Corpses or Pulp Fiction, people that like these movies, and you meet them, it's like, I love this movie, dude. And then you can talk with them about it for hours or for a good hour. I don't know if anyone can hear that police siren, but they're probably after me because they know I'm here illegally, probably. Yeah, and so then you have these people that watch it, and then you connect with them. And I think kind of from them stems other stuff, like guys like Kevin Smith, who talk about it, who people pay to go see this guy talk about bullshit and answer questions because he has such an awesome mind and such an awesome opinion and point of view about stuff. And then from that stems podcasting, like what I'm doing right now, how me and you, I'm pretty sure, even then, for all, like, I think, like I said, the most viewers I have right now is like 50 to 60 people. They maybe just tune in for their different reasons because they're a fan of you, or they're a fan of me, or because they like podcasts, and because they like hearing about nerdy shit. Or there's probably, hopefully, if this whole thing of podcasting, all the trouble I go with, all of the editing, the time I put into it, the cramming of scheduling, the procrastinating, the trying to get people on there, it all becomes worth it. If there's just that one fucking person that, you know, at like a wrestling show, or someone who comes on Facebook or on a video or subscribes and goes, hey man, I listened to that podcast with you and Chris Osborn, and I think that shit is the fucking mad note, because you two talked about shit that I've always wanted to talk about.
Yes.
And that's exactly how I fucking feel. And that is, like, totally worth it. Like, I could keep going on for 100 episodes and going through all this shit if there's just one person comes to me and says that. And, like, that's the best shit right there, because you know it's paying off, because it really pays off because you were that person. Because you, like, I was that person who came up to Kevin Smith and go, hey man, your shit's fucking awesome, and you what made me want to be a filmmaker. You are what makes me want to start podcasting and writing and come with all these ideas. I'm sure that's what makes it worth it for him to come all that way and talk for fucking 10 hours and tell his story, because it's all worth it in the end because of the inspiration you give people.
It's all about continuing the cycle. You want to give life to this community and just keep continuing what you're doing. Mm-hmm. It's just about continuing that cycle, and you know, you want to give life to the next person, because that next person could be the next Kevin Smith, could be the next Quentin Tarantino. There's a whole list of people that will continue because of one thing you did that you may not think is that significant, but for them it was this monumental moment that they just had that realization.
Yeah, definitely. Well, we've been talking for almost an hour now. It's been, honestly, I have to say, it's been an absolute pleasure talking with you. Absolutely. I'm really glad you took the time to come on a podcast and talk about bullshit with me, like every other podcast. So I hope anyone who listens to this has found some sorts of inspiration or enjoyed our little conversation here. Very interesting time talking about the interest that both me and you have, and both share and stuff like that. But we have to wrap it up. There's a few things on the show I didn't get to, but I mean, for what we did talk about, I'm very happy with it. Before I leave, I got to plug some shows. October 22nd, Freak Show Wrestling returns to the Fremont Country Club for Dustin Bone. Main event will be Cody Rhodes versus Funny Bone, and myself and my tag partner will be forming the Detention as we go against Jervis Cottonbelly and the Hobo. So make sure you turn into that. So a very fun show from Freak Show Wrestling. And then the next day, Sunday, October 23rd, is BVW's Devil's Night. That'll be a fun time. I will be defending my fighting championship. And then also October 30th, at the FSW Arena, they have their special annual Halloween theme show. I'm sure they're going to have that Halloween Battle Royal or something like that. That'll be a lot of fun. That's all the events I can think of right now. But thank you all for joining me. Thank you very much, Chris, for taking the time to be here once again.
Absolutely.
Until next time, everybody, just remember, like I said at the beginning and at the end, just take a step back and realize what you have. Whether it be a friend that you sit down with every week to podcast, or just not even a podcast, just to talk about bullshit with, or any production, or your job, or things you're doing that you're finally getting the chance to do and you've always wanted to do. Just take a step back to take a chance to smell the roses and see what you really have. And that's Tenacious. Thank you very much, everyone. See you next Monday.